AvePoint Fly allows you to run Slack to Teams migrations without the need to go into Slack and then do exports and then go over into Office 365, either into the appropriate team or into SharePoint Online, and then manually upload your content. To perform a Slack to Teams migration, the first step is to go into Migration Connector and build a connection to each of those scopes. Once that's done, over on the left we click Migration. On the migration plan page, from the dropdown, we are migrating out of Slack, so if necessary, scroll all the way down, select Slack, and click OK. If you had any previous Slack migrations, they would be listed here on this page. Then click Create Plan. Where do we want to migrate from? Since I picked Slack migration, it is selecting Slack for me, and it is selecting my source connection, which I previously built under Migration Connector. If I had multiple Slack connectors, I could pick them from the dropdown. Click Next. On the next screen, you can see it chooses Microsoft Teams, and Teams is the only option because Fly only migrates from Slack to Teams. From the connection dropdown, if you had multiple Teams connections, you'd be able to pick the one that you wanted. And then below that, select a destination team in that destination scope. With it selected, click Next. On this step of building the plan, we create our mappings. Mappings are source Slack object to destination Teams object. You can do this a few different ways, including trying to auto map if the objects have similar names, or if you've created a separate document where you've mapped out all of your source objects to destination objects, you could import that here. If I click Add a Mapping, I can do them manually. To do that, we click under Source Slack Name and type the name of the channel that we're trying to import. Typing a single letter will pull up all the object names from Slack. We then go over into the team and do the same. If you need to do multiple mappings, you continue to click Add a Mapping and map source to destination. Once that's done, click Next. The last step of the wizard is to fill out some additional options, including giving the plan a unique name and choosing a migration policy, migration database, and plan group. You'll note these are not required. A migration policy handles some specific source to destination mappings. The database allows you to store all of the information around the job so that later on you can go back in and pull that information and report on how the migration went as a whole. And a plan group allows you to associate multiple plans together to run on the same schedule. In this case, I will leave those blank, and I'll check Set up Schedule Plan. Now, the idea behind a schedule primarily is to give you the ability to run incremental migrations over a period of time. The logic there is, if you have users in the source, users still in Slack, that continue to work, continue to have conversations, continue to upload files, well, if you're going to leave them there for a time, you will periodically want to migrate those changes, the deltas, to that original channel. If you're simply going to cut the entire team over into Teams from Slack once this migration is complete, a schedule may not be necessary. So let's say I want to do this for maybe about a week. That's when my migration is planned to be completed. Finally, under Advanced Settings down at the bottom, do you want to migrate conversations over into HTML, which refers to the fact that your Slack conversations, due to API limitations, do not come over and go live in Teams automatically. So those will all be captured as HTML files and stored at the appropriate team channel for historical reference. If you'd like, you can tell it to migrate the conversations in HTML and then post the messages to the chat, to the conversations. That way users can view them in line as opposed to having to go to the HTML files. This makes the migration a little bit longer, but may be better for your end users. I'm going to select that, and now down at the bottom, if I click Finish, it will run on my schedule, or I could click Finish and Run, which will kick the migration plan off right now and do a full migration. And then tonight is when the first incremental would occur. I'm going to click Finish and Run. And then Run Now. We can see our plan has been created and the migration job is going to run. It may take a few moments for it to connect to source and destination and then begin running the job. If you want to ensure that it has kicked off, hit refresh a few times until you see the job appear on the screen. Thank you for watching this short video on performing a Slack to Teams migration using AvePoint Fly.